Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to episode 26 of Fundraising BIDness Talk. I'm Patrick Cyber. I'm the owner and principal auctioneer at G Events, based in beautiful Beaverton, Oregon, and I am so excited to be with you today as we cover a topic I think is really pertinent to today's events, and as we look forward to planning our fall events and the spring events and fundraising auctions throughout the country. The subject today is online bidding, and I have to say that my opinions on online bidding has changed pretty dramatically as a result of COVID. I at one time prior to COVID used to feel like that online bidding had a place, but there was some concern that it was really only used for people that were actually in attendance at the event. It was something that I felt like was beneficial if the group had a very short window for their online bidding for their silent auction, or they had a very crowded space for their silent auction, or there was a lot of distractions. I was also really concerned with some of the auction platforms were charging significant dollars to implement their online bidding element or module of their software. And I thought that that was real risky, and that you needed to be aware that you may not recoup those dollars. So I was pretty sensitive to it. As we've entered COVID, that's changed everything. We've seen that for a couple of reasons. First of all, we're not just utilizing it at the gathering event, that is no longer its principal use. It's not just for not just for the silent auction portion of a fundraising event. It can be used for all the elements, and so it makes a lot more sense. And when we couldn't gather and we still needed to raise money, online auctions were a wonderful, wonderful tool. And so we're going to run through some of my thoughts today on online auctions and hopefully give you some tips for helping you and your nonprofit organization raise even more money as you're planning your events for the fall and for the spring. I want to remind everybody you are always, always welcome and encouraged. First and foremost is just be sure to say hi and tell us where you're tuning in from today in the comments or chat. Also, feel free to ask a question. If I say something today and it triggers a thought or a question, please be sure to drop in that question into the comment box on regardless of which platform you're using, and we will try to answer it right here on air. We are broadcasting today on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, all on the G Events channels on all of those platforms. So it's going to be a great time today. So, first and foremost, I'm gonna leave you with this statement that's been pretty common in the auction industry for many, many years, not necessarily just in the benefit business, but in the auction industry as a whole. And amongst auctioneers, we firmly believe in this statement, and that is, it does not matter where you start the bidding, it's all about where you finish. So please keep in mind all the things that we'll talk about today are really focused on where you finish, and finish means raising more money for your organization. So let's start first and foremost with, why should I use online bidding? There's a lot of reasons, but I'm going to touch on just a couple today. One of the first ones that sticks out in my mind is there is no barrier to folks supporting your nonprofit organization. And you'll see in parentheses I put created by you, right? There could always be barriers. People don't have an internet connection. People don't have any money at the time, whatever it is, right? But by having an online auction, you are making access very, very simple for your potential supporters, current and future supporters, by having no barrier to entry. You don't have to buy a ticket to be able to bid and support your organization. You don't have to get dressed up. You don't need a babysitter. You don't need a lot of things to support this specific nonprofit hosting the event. The other thing I love about it is that it's open 24/7. And why is that important? Well, I'll tell you why that's important is because I have noticed as we have jumped into this environment that a lot of things have kind of caught my attention that maybe didn't used to catch my attention. And one of them is that, for many, many years, we had our event on a certain date at a certain time. And as soon as I told you that we were going to have a fundraising event on, let's say, Saturday, November 7th, well, you quickly went into your mind and into your calendar, and you were either eligible to attend that event or you were not able to attend that event. And so as soon as I wasn't able to attend that event, I felt like I didn't need to support that nonprofit, right? Because I wasn't going to enjoy their party. I wasn't going to enjoy their event. And online bidding being open 24/7, I'm going to talk a little bit later about promoting the entire window of time that your online bidding is available as the window. And with it being open 24/7, it really gives your supporters an opportunity to support your mission and your organization at their convenience. And who in this world does not want things to be at your own convenience? So that's one of the big reasons I love online bidding is it's open 24/7. The other thing I want you to keep in mind is that every bid is raising money for your nonprofit organization, right? And so when you say every bid is raising more money, we want to remember that more people checking out your online auction means more bidders, and more bidders mean more bids. And so every time someone is bidding on an item, they are raising money for your organization, whether they win it or they don't. And so we're no longer limited to the people that are in attendance, right? So whether it was a date conflict or a location conflict, right? Don't forget, online bidding reaches anyone with an internet connection. So if you wouldn't traditionally come to a gathering event for an organization because it's not in the city you live, or you're going to be out of town or anything like that, you can participate in the online bidding. So, and every single bid, whether they win the item or not, is raising money. So that is fantastic. Now I'm going to roll through several recommendations here, and one of them is that I definitely would not charge for supporters to bid online. I know that I have peers in the industry who have a lot of success and are really adamant that you charge for these virtual events. But I rarely see a reason to charge someone to make a bid and support your organization. Now, if you are providing them with something, if you are providing them with food and beverage, if you're providing them with a band and a dancing and a dinner and all those different things that you would at a gathering event, absolutely, I can see you charging for that. But in this environment where all you're asking them to do is provide you with their name and contact information and then allowing them to bid, I don't think I would charge access for folks to bid online. And, pre-COVID, that was a subject of discussion, right? We talked about that we were so sensitive to getting more people in the room. Many of my clients, I noticed, were always sensitive to, well, we don't want to let people participate in the event that don't buy a ticket, right? Well, that's okay, but I believe that the philosophy has changed. Today, it's like, who can we get to support our organization? And if it's not their jam to go to an event, let's give them an opportunity to support our cause. And so I would not charge. This stays in line with one of the benefits I talked about earlier, that there is no barriers that you're creating as the nonprofit organization to people supporting your cause. All right. And then let's talk about how you should incorporate online bidding, because a lot of folks, the dynamics have changed, and I consistently am in conversations on a regular basis, on a daily basis, with clients and folks inquiring about our services, and they're trying to adapt or trying to how would I say this, bring over what may have been best practices in the traditional silent auction and incorporate that into online bidding. And I would say that those two are dramatically different. And so that I don't agree with that. So I wanted to roll through several recommendations that I would give you and your organization in helping you incorporate online bidding for your event. So that's where we're going to go. And before I move on, I want to draw attention to the differences or illustrate the differences. Before we were our silent auction components were available for 60 to 90 minutes during the social hour of an event. We had all the items on display in a room, and our guests mixed and mingled while they bid on silent auction packages. And many times there was too many of them, right? And so it was very difficult to get around the room, and it was depending on how crowded it was, and you were competing with lines at the bar, and you were competing with folks who haven't maybe seen each other in quite some time, and they were anxious to socialize with one another. So there was a lot of conflicts, and one of the challenges, I should say. The other thing that sticks in my mind is that we were using paper bid sheets, and those paper bid sheets only had room maybe for 10 to 15 bids, and that was it. Okay. And we were trying to get all that done in 60 to 90 minutes, depending on the event. And so I would present that comparative to the online bidding world, drastically different. And so our recommendations are different in this environment. So let's roll through them, talk a little bit about them. And like I said a moment ago, I want to remind you, if you have any questions, hey, please feel free, type them in the comment box, and we are more than happy to answer them for you as we go along. So one of the things I hear all the time is, how long should our online bidding be available, right? And I'm really talking about the online bidding portion, whether you're hosting a virtual event, a gathering event, or a hybrid event. I really do believe that you should be incorporating online bidding as a rule. And I think that for a window of time, I would say a minimum of 7 days. Okay. I think that kind of fits everybody, and it kind of adjusts for anybody's work schedule, for family schedule, for anything. If you've got a full week, somebody's got some few minutes to jump in and go online and peruse your catalog and make some bids. I'd also encourage you to consider covering 2 weekends as we move into the hybrid format and we move it back into some gathering events. One of the things that I'm seeing is we're moving back to weekend events. And when we started the whole virtual event environment back in March of 2020, one of the premises that I quickly adopted was that we needed to move our events to weeknights, because we felt like that it was going to be easier to get folks' attention on a weeknight to tune into a live stream than it was going to be able to get their attention on a weekend to watch a live stream after they'd been through a week of Zoom meetings and different things, right? And so as we move back into the new environment of both gathering and hybrid events, we're still doing virtual events. I have virtual events booked all the way through the fall. I have some hybrid events during that time. I have some groups that are exclusively gathering events, right? So, but as we do that, a lot of those dates are moving back to weekends. And so when they do, I think that having that online bidding window open for a minimum 7 days, but consider covering 2 weekends, right? So if your event's on a Saturday, maybe you want to open up not the Friday immediately before, not 48 hours before, but maybe 8-9 days before your gathering or your virtual event, your hybrid event, so that people have plenty of opportunity, plenty of time, right? What does it matter how long they have to bid? As I said in the opening of the show, it's not where they start bidding, it's where they finish that is important, right? So that's kind of where I would lean. And then the other thing is, people ask about, when do I close the event, right? Well, we are having an auction, folks. And so when we're having an auction, we want people to bid. We want that excitement of bidding and getting outbid and bidding again, right? And so my recommendation to you is set a closing time when your audience is easily engaged. Okay, if you're tying your online bidding auction to a gathering event or hybrid event or virtual event, then I think it makes sense to have it open all the way near the end of those events, okay? So that you can promote it while you are in the gathering environment or you're streaming on your live stream event for your virtual, live streaming for your hybrid. I think that's great. Otherwise, I would say pick a time where you know your audience, right? And every audience is different. I know as I talk to and listen to auctioneers from throughout the United States, which is really influenced my philosophy on this, is not necessarily listening to other benefit auctioneers, but listening to auctioneers who have been doing online auctions for many, many years. In the traditional industry parts of the business, I love to hear what they have to say, because we now more closely reflect what happens in the traditional online auction world, not just the benefit auction world, right? And so pick a time when your audience is easily engaged. Maybe that's weekends, maybe that's weeknights, maybe that's during the day. Not many groups are going to be engaged during the week, during the day, but definitely don't do it at midnight when nobody in your group is awake, right? Think about doing it in times when you can engage those folks, right? And then got a question. Our good friend, our really good friend, guy I have a great deal of respect to, Roger Devine, joining us from LinkedIn today. Roger is the owner of schoolauction.net. He's a founder and partner and ownership of that. And his question today is, do you see a lot of value in bringing silent auctions items back to in-person gathering events if the bidding is online and scheduled for a week or two? Hey, Roger, that's a great question. And you know what, I'm gonna address that, because one of the things that I think is great about as we move back, and one of the things that I think we should adopt from our virtual environment, is the fact that people did not have to physically see the items to bid on them. And I think when we think about our organizations and we are picking a venue, when we are writing the schedule for the event, I think that we are given a lot more flexibility in those areas when we do not bring the items to the actual gathering element of the event, and we do not feel obligated to display those items, and we do not feel obligated to distribute them on site, right? I think that people got really comfortable and understood stopping by the nonprofit's office to pick up the items that they won. We're not necessarily going to sell all the items to people who are actually in attendance. I think that there was, probably one of the biggest, I don't want to say if I would say complaints, but I think it really is a kind of a something that people didn't look forward to at the end of the night after enjoying a wonderful gathering event, was the checkout process, right? And we all know how much easier it is to check out electronically now. Schoolauction.net has a wonderful platform for that. They can send you an email and you just literally click on your cart and you pay for everything and then go by and pick it up. And more importantly, I had this conversation yesterday with a client. Selfishly, for the nonprofit, I think it's wonderful if you have a venue that people can come and they can pick up their items, that it's a great opportunity for that personal touch with that executive director, with that key development person, with that key staff member, to be able to thank that donor and that buyer who purchased those packages. And I think they appreciate that warm, thank you and communication. And I think it helps your donor development. And I have some groups too, folks that deliver the items, right? They have enough volunteers, and they, it's a wonderful deal. And I think as we move back to gathering events, there's a lot of times that people are taking Ubers and people are sharing rides. And so, you know, Roger, great question, buddy. I really would. Um, I wouldn't say that there's a hard line answer, but I think there's a lot of reasons to reconsider and make sure that there's a benefit for you actually transporting all those items and having to manage those items and have more volunteers and have to handle um, not only the displaying and the space, but also the distribution on the back end. So great question, Roger, and I appreciate that. And keep up the great work over there at schoolauction.net. You guys have a wonderful platform. I got to use it earlier this year with Boone's Ferry Primary, and we had a great event for them, and it worked really well. So thank you so very much for all that you're doing. Let's go on to the next recommendation, and that has to do with anti-sniping or bid extension, depending on the software you're using. I wanted to share with you a little bit about what I mean by that. In the auction world, right? I think it's kind of a I don't know if it's an oxymoron, but it's definitely not an accurate reflection of reality when you call it a silent auction. Okay, a silent auction was a timed event that we closed the bidding at a certain time, and that was so that we could move into the dining room and have dinner and the live auction and all those elements, right? But in an auction, when I'm on the podium or at the stage and I'm taking bids, I continue to take bids until the bidding is done, right? I take bids until the folks are done bidding. And so a silent auction doesn't really do that. It's kind of like, hey, we got to serve dinner, so quit bidding now, right? Well, online bidding provides you an opportunity to have a situation where we call it anti-sniping or or to have a bid extension. And what that means is two things. I think, if you've used eBay before, you've been bidding on an item and you thought you'd bid all the way up until the last millisecond, and then somebody sniped in there and undercut you, and then the time closed, right? Or if you're at that gathering event, that big person, kind of bullied their way past you or stood in front of the item you wanted to bid on so that you couldn't bid at the last second, whatever it is, right? Well, with anti-sniping or bid extension, depending on which software you're using, you can avoid that, right? And what anti-sniping and bid extension does is if a package, right, does receive a bid within a window of time prior to the closing time, it will automatically extend that item, the bidding on that item, an additional amount of time to allow for people to be notified that they've been outbid and give them an opportunity to bid again. Okay, and so this is really crucial. This is a huge deal. I actually there's a very popular software out there for nonprofits that does not have this feature, and I am absolutely flabbergasted that they don't have it, because it's a big deal, and it makes more money for your clients or for your nonprofit organization when you are utilizing anti-sniping or bid extension. And I'll give you an example. I had a group this last fall that we worked with, and we implemented the bid extension. They were on the Octria platform, and we utilized their bid extension window. And when we did, I went back and looked at it after the event, and they had 31 items that were in their online auction, right? And out of that 31 items, 7 of them went to what we call extended time, right? They went to bidding past the original closing window. And so I went in and I looked at the amount of money that was raised past the closing time, and it was well over $1,000 on these 7 items. Now, this is a small event, right? The reality is $1,000 more than paid for. In fact, it paid for their auction software twice, right? Just with that one element and that one tool that is incorporated into that auction software. So, when you're looking at auction software, make sure that they have an anti-sniping or a bid extension module element that they can include in their that they include in their online bidding, that you set the increments. And when setting those increments, I'm going to tell you, I'd like to see you set it to 5 and 5. What I mean by that is set it to 5 minutes prior to the closing of that auction item. If someone makes a bid within the last 5 minutes before the closing time, it will extend the closing time 5 more minutes. Okay, and that happens infinitely, right? That's what I recommend. Now, there are some, in fact, I think it's Octria might be one. I think it has a max of 90 minutes, which is plenty. I can't imagine an item, getting rebid, outbid for an additional 90 minutes. But others, Octria, you just leave it blank on how many times it can be done, and it'll keep going infinitely, right? But very important, recommend definitely setting your anti-sniping or your bid extension windows to 5 and 5. That's 5 minutes before close and 5 minutes after close. Okay. And then the next thing I want to talk about, this is something that we used to utilize in silent auctions, and this was really it benefits, and this was a result of overcrowding or too many items. We used to employ a methodology, we call it buy it now. And what that was we would have, like we talked about, those silent bid sheets. They had 12 lines on it, and we might have recommended that the starting bid be at say 50% or 40%, and then we would say run up the increments up to about 135 to 150% of value. Okay, and then put a buy it now on it. And really the methodology there is that you have a lot of folks that come to your event who have zero interest in running around and working around the room and managing all their bids. In other words, they don't want to necessarily have to monitor all the different bid sheets. And when we close the bidding and they've got bids on 4 different things, 5 different packages, whatever it is, they can't get to them, right? Because of the space in the room or crowded or whatever it is. So we used to put these buy it now lines on there, and it was a great revenue generator in the traditional silent auction environment with a bid sheet. Now, my argument would be, in an online bidding environment, we have no limit to how many bids we can take. And why would you ever stop bidding on an item prior to its closing time, right? Or prior to when people are done bidding. So please, best practice, do not incorporate buy it now on auction items. Now, that is not to say, and I want to be clear, because buy it now might mean different in different parts of the market that are watching this video today. In some places, we might call those items that have a set price. We would call those, in the industry, we would call those for sale items. I'm not saying don't have for sale items. What I'm saying is don't have a buy it now, where an item that is biddable, that could be bid on, don't allow, set a number that people can automatically buy it at, okay? Unless you're planning on selling multiples of it or something like that. And then the other thing I want to talk about, let's visit a little bit about starting increments or starting prices and the increments, right? I just said a few minutes ago, we used to recommend starting prices at 40% of fair market value, and then using increments up to anywhere from 135% to 150% of value to where your buy it now was. And this is an area that made a lot of sense, once again, when we were gathering, when we were limited by 60 to 90 minutes, when we were fighting against lines at the bar and socializing and all those different elements, right? And so as we broke into this online bidding world for our benefit auctions, I started to once again go and reach out to my auctioneer friends around the United States that were running personal property, antiques and collectibles, real estate, automobiles, livestock, all those different elements. And I said, hey, you're doing online bidding. They would say, yeah, we are. Back, we've been doing it for 20 years. I would say, well, tell me, what percentage do you start your bidding at? And they go, percentage? They look at me like I was crazy, right? And I said, well, where do you start the bidding? And they say, well, we start the bidding all in the same price. And I said, regardless of fair market value? And they said, yeah, regardless of fair market value, we start everything at $1. I'm like, $1? You start bidding at $1 on a $30,000 John Deere tractor, or on a, on a $50,000 car? Absolutely. $1. And you know why? Because, Patrick, what I said earlier, it's not where you start, it's where you finish. Okay? It's where the bidding finishes. That's important, right? And the more people you get engaged and the more people you get bidding, the more money you are going to raise. And at the end of the day, the price, the closing price, will be truly the fair market value. It's what those people are willing to pay for it, right? And so I was kind of mesmerized by that. And I bounced it off a few of my clients just as in discussion. And one of them said, "Hey, we're going to try that." And I'm like, "Amen. Here we go." So, they said, what do you recommend we start at? And I said, and I continue to stand by it today, I recommend opening items at $10. I want to see as many items as we can. I want to see them opened at $10. Now, I'm going to present that if you have some items that are consignment packages, or you have some minimums for some reason that were implemented by the donor, something along those lines. Hey, I'm not giving you my house, unless you start the bidding at $1,000 or whatever, right? That's okay, right? You can do that. But you want to be able to promote. Most items start at $10, okay? And the other things I'm going to recommend is underwrite your consignment items, right? We did a whole show, and I would encourage you to go back to our Fundraising BIDness Talk channel and check out our segment we did with Michelle Anderson from auctionpackages.com. And we did a full segment on consignment and underwriting of consignment packages, and how to get creative with that. But basically, in a nutshell, and very quick moment here, I would just say that underwriting is basically identifying a sponsor who will cover the cost of the actual initial reserve price of that consignment package, in lieu of being the recognition that they're the donor. And it's great, right? We've got a $4,500 trip to Mexico that we're going to put up for auction. The nonprofit organization is on the hook for $1,000 is the nonprofit price of that package. Well, sell it to the sponsor for $1,500, because you're going to tell everybody that they donated a $4,500 package. Okay. And when you're able to multiply, which is another benefit of consignment, that underwriter, that sponsor, is going to get credit for donating multiple packages at $4,500. And the reality is they spent $1,500. So great way. And if you have it underwritten, if you have your consignment packages underwritten, then start them at $10, right? What a marketing coup, if you will, to be able to say that, all of our packages start at $10, including a 7-night stay in sunny Mexico, right? Great opportunity to take advantage of. So I'm going to encourage you, open your items at $10. It is going to get you an incredible amount of activity. The first event I mentioned that we did that with, they had registered about 50 bidders the year before in an in-person gathering event. 50 bidders is roughly 100 attendees. But this, when we did this format and we promoted the heck out of it, okay, it was key, and I'm going to talk about in the next segment. We registered 167 bidders. So we more than tripled their bidders. And so that's the main reason that I love this opening at $10, is it gets people engaged. It gets people bidding. We achieved right at, I want to say, about 100% of fair market value for the overall online auction. And that was pretty impressive. Very, very impressive. So definitely encourage making that happen. And then the other thing I want to talk about is that folks ask me all the time, what do we set our increments? If you say the starting price is going to be $10 on these, if that's the starting bid is $10, what should our increments be, right? And we don't want to see a package, let's say with that Mexico package, right? We're hoping to get it, in that particular package, we're hoping to get it to $2,500, $3,000, right? and would be pretty standard that we see normally. Well, if we started it at $10, we don't want to go in dollar or $5 or $10 increments all the way up to 4,500. That'll, that won't be much fun for folks. What you'll see is that people will utilize their proxy bidding options or their max bid options, depending on which software you are. So people can bid more and let the computer bid for them. But regardless, I would say that what I recommend doing is adjusting your increments based on the current bid, right? And so you're probably sitting there going, what is he talking about? And I put together a little table to share with you. And this is what it means. So the current bid, what is the current bid online? And then what increment should it be at? So if you see you start things out at $10 and you watch those items be bid on, I would start the increment at $10. Okay, so $10. Next bid is at 20. Next bid is at 30. Next bid is at 40. Okay, all the way up to that should be $90, right? And then once we get to $100, then we're going to kick the bidding up to 25. Now, in traditional online auction software, many of the platforms have the ability to script what those increments are. I have not seen that in the most popular benefit auction software plans, but so I kind of help my clients do it manually, just kind of by monitoring, watching the bids, and when bids get to a certain number, then I just kick the increments up for them, or they go in and kick the increments up. So just to kind of summarize, look here, if if the bid was at $500, then we want to kick the increment to $550, so, or to $50. So now it's $550, then $600, $6.50, $7.50, now $8, $850, $9, $950, and then we're going to go to $1,000. When we get to $1,000, we want to start going in $100 increments, or $100 clicks, as we like to say as auctioneers. So that's an idea for you. That's kind of a base guideline. You know where your organization is and how you're going to do it, but this is just a general guide that I would use that has been helpful for my clients. So that's fantastic. And now we've got the pricing. We're all fired up. We know when we're going to close. We know what the pricing looks like. We know that we've got bid extension on it, on and on and on. And now we are ready to open bidding. And there is nothing more important at that point than promoting your online auction. You have got to promote your online auction. And that's different, folks, than promoting your gathering event. Drastically different. And we're gonna get into that a little bit here. I find for most nonprofit organizations that we work with, that email and social media are the most cost-effective ways for an organization to promote their opportunities and their auction. And so I, highly encourage that. When you do, though, I'm going to encourage you to promote that it's a week of fundraising, right? If your online bidding is open for a week and then you have a gathering event, or you have a virtual event, a hybrid event, whatever it is, right? Don't just talk about that, like we said earlier, that Saturday, November 7th, right? Because Saturday, November 7th, I might be booked, but I am not booked for the entire week, okay? And that's how we drive traffic. I see some of my peers in the industry, promoting that we open our online bidding, 2 days before an event, and then close it 2 days after the event. And I'm always baffled by that, right? And then I started looking at some of those events, and I realized, well, they don't do a very good job of promoting the online bidding availability prior to their event. So yeah, they had to tell everybody that they were bidding online at the event, and then keeping it open. The downside of that is there's no momentum, there's no buildup, right? So let me please encourage you to, when you're promoting your online auction elements, definitely encourage folks and make them aware of, join us for a week of fundraising. Nobody can say no to that, right? You're open 24/7. They didn't have to buy a ticket, and it's available all week. So definitely. And one way to promote that, okay, And we're doing this now just about with every client. We offer it to every client, and that is a kickoff live stream. And what do I mean by that? What's a kickoff live stream? Well, it's very simple. We utilize the same platform that we're on right now. We're using StreamYard. We're streaming to my company's different social media platforms. Right now, I think I mentioned it earlier, we're going to my Facebook personal page, my Facebook business page, my LinkedIn page, my YouTube page, my Twitter account, and to my Twitch account. We're going to all those. And so what a great way to reach the nonprofits organization is not necessarily creating a live stream that's only on YouTube that nobody ever goes to for a live stream. Let's drive it right to their social media accounts. Let's put it right on their Facebook account. Let's put it, where people are going, their followers are going to follow about their organization. The only downside is you cannot stream to Instagram from outside of your organization or outside of the platform, right? You have to be inside of Instagram. So you can't use a third-party app to get to those platforms. But everybody else, yes. And incredibly powerful. What we do with those kickoff live streams is we take about a half hour. I usually do it from right here in my home studio, and I'll have either the executive director or the auction chair, someone that's visible with the event, be my co-host, and we will go live, and they'll be in their home or their office. I'll be right here in my studio. And what we do is we kick it off and we let everybody know, hey, this is great. Our week of fundraising is happening starting today, and online bidding is open today, and everything is opening at $10. So get in there and place those bids right away. Here's how you do that. Here's the website you go to. Here's how you bid. Here's how all the elements that someone needs to know. Now, the beauty of that is you say, well, what time do you schedule that, Patrick? I'm going to tell you to do it anytime the day that bidding opens, okay? Because what's powerful about using these platforms is that the recording resides on that platform, okay? So I always tell my clients, let's take the post of the video from our live stream show and let's pin it to the top of your Facebook page. So anybody comes to your Facebook page, the first post they're going to see is the kickoff live stream. And they will be, they'll learn everything about your event, right? And your online bidding. And the party starts right then, okay? So definitely encourage you, use a kickoff live stream. Show people how to participate, let them showcase your items, showcase your packages. It gives you a mission moment, right? It gives you an opportunity to share with people why you're having this fundraising event. And I think that that's incredibly powerful. And then the other thing I'm going to encourage you to do, right, is to promote items and packages, not just the auction. And what do I mean by that? What I'm going to say is that most of the platforms today, I know Octree, I'm pretty sure, our friend Roger, I think at schoolauction.net, I've seen it in some other platforms. When I go to look at a specific package in the auction, there is usually social media icons. And if I click on those, it will share that individual package with my social media account. So if I click on a package and I hit the Facebook icon, it will create a post for me for that trip to Mexico, okay? And it will put it right on my social media. Now, why is that important? Well, here's the logic, folks, is that look at your feed when we get off the call today, when we get off the fundraising BIDness talk for today. Go to your Facebook feed and scroll through, and you'll see a lot of fundraisers, right? And fundraisers are great until you tell me who the money's for, and that's not my favorite organization, or I've got a more favorite cause, or whatever it is, right? But I would present that when I see that there's a trip I can bid on to Hawaii and it benefits nonprofit, I don't care which nonprofit, okay? Or I can buy that Mexico trip, and the bidding started at $10, right? Here we go. It's all coming together now, right, folks? It's all coming back into the circle. When you post that individual item, I think that it will catch the attention of the people that are reading through their news feeds, and a lot more than saying, hey, join us for our online auction. It's like, I have no idea what's on it, and I don't really care about your charity, right? So but when I see, a beautiful beach, and all of a sudden I can feel the toe in my sand in my toes, right? And I really, really want to get after that. And so please, it's great to promote your event. It's great to promote that you're doing this auction on your social media. But more importantly, really, 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 I encourage you to promote your individual packages and items. And our buddy Roger's chiming in. I think he says yes. I believe he's saying yes because of the feature in schoolauction.net, which I'm almost positive that's what it is, but I know he's into promoting too. So that would be the case. And then the last thing I'm going to tell you on this is that when you get people to your website because you've promoted it, okay, there is no guarantee that that they're gonna bid, right? They may bid on things, but they may not win them, okay? And I'm going to always encourage you to always provide a cash donation option on your website. Always make sure that when you get those people and you get them on the line, as we say in the fishing business, when you get that hook and you got them over to your website and you're showing them all your auction items, we hope they bid on them all. Don't be shy. Ask them for a donation. Ask them to support your cause. And not only that, they can make a difference in your organization today, right? By making a cash donation. So, folks, that's my segment for today. If there's any questions, fire them up. I'll hang in here for a few more seconds and answer any questions. And while we're doing that, I want to remind you that you can reach out to us at any point. geventsllc.com. There's actually a booking calendar on there. You can schedule a visit with me on a Zoom call. You just schedule a half hour or an hour, whatever works for you. I would love to visit with you about your event and answer any questions that you may have about what we've talked about today or how we could help your organization and your event. And then also the Library of Fundraising BIDness Talk. This is episode 26, and all 26 episodes are available on our Vimeo channel. Just go to Vimeo and search Fundraising BIDness Talk. And so that's it for today. I appreciate you taking the time, tuning in with us, watching us on the replays. Always appreciate the shares and the likes and all those different things that you can do. We hope you have a great day, and may all your, as my good buddy Lori Hockman says, may all your bids soar. Have a great day, everybody.